Judge, we'll get, so you can go back to work.
It's totally up to you. I'm enjoying this. My day's a little bit more depressing. I've enjoyed hearing all the great things that are going on in Whitley County this morning. I'm kind of disappointed I have to leave.
You're over there in that building, you don't know what's going on.
I know, and unfortunately the folks that come to me usually aren't as growing and expanding. It's the other way. And I do plan on having my spring vacation in Larwell this year, so I just wanted to know, Kim, I'm making those plans right now. I don't know if all of you have the memo that was prepared by Judge Hewer. He couldn't be here today, but just to give you a brief rundown, I know you know most of this, but I have 4 employees in my court. I have a criminal court reporter named Laura. I have a civil court reporter, Deb, that took Linda's spot. I have an assistant to both of those, Tammy, who's come on and done a real fine job, and then Michelle is our bailiff. What we're looking to do is, Jim has had a part-time person for several years, and we've just developed a need to have a little bit more help in my court, but the issues that we face with that are, number 1, funding, and number 2, space. We simply, even if we wanted to hire a part-time person, we have no place to put them. During my hiring process for hiring Tammy, I interviewed Heather, who is Jim's part-time person, and she's fantastic. She's well-liked by everyone, and she's a hard worker, and she was a close second when it came to hiring. So we kind of blossomed into this idea of perhaps making her a full-time position and splitting her between the courts. When we started the process, we looked at several factors. The courts are becoming a lot like the military. We spend an hour doing training and 5 hours reporting on the training. And that's what we're getting into a lot more with the courts. A good example of that is, and there's several, but a good example of that is we started this electronic abstracts. Anytime we have a felony case that gets convicted in my court, I have to send, Laura has to prepare this extensive electronic abstract to the Department of Corrections. Even if we don't send them. The majority of people I sentence do not go to the Department of Corrections. We've got a great program in the Work Release Center. We work great with Paula and her staff, and most of the folks go out there, but we still have to prepare those abstracts. I'm also looking at, in the process of being certified as a Veterans Treatment Court, which is going to require Laura to come into court every Friday, which she normally doesn't have to do, my criminal court reporter, and do about an hour every Friday to follow up on those. So what I've been trying to do is get her a little bit of help. So I've been using Tammy more on the criminal side, but for Deb, now she's stuck. We had as many small claims last year by October as we'd had the whole year before. So we're still getting an increase in cases to come along. So we thought this nice compromise would be if we could make Heather a full-time person. She's already got an office, and we put her in as a full-time, and we split her time between the 2 courts. When I went to talk to Kim and the Personnel Committee, one of the things that we promised is, under the current climate, we understand that sitting in your chair, the last thing that you can afford to do is add payroll. So we started scouring the books and trying to come up with a way to fund it. And one of the things that we've been doing over the last 2 years is investigating this Title 4D reimbursement. And what that is, you probably heard it through the prosecutor's office. It's basically the federal program that subsidizes the counties for enforcement of child support. We really didn't even know it was available to the courts until Debbie Beers brought it to our attention. Pat her on the back for that. So we started that process last year, and we did a time study for all the staff, figured out who was able to come up, who does the 4D enforcement, and then how we can use that to supplement it. So as Jim and I have been brainstorming this process to try to find a way to supplement or to staff this program, we learned that we can shift some of these monies around. Jeanette, his court reporter, does a majority of 4D work. So by funding her through the 4D program, we get reimbursement for her salary. Heather still does 25% of her salary. And to make a long story short, you can read the numbers. We can actually fund the program and save the county general payroll fund $6,000. So what we thought we would do is ask for approval from the commissioners, the Personnel Committee, and the council to make her a full-time position. In a nutshell, that's about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know I threw a lot at you real fast, but please fire away.
All these funds that are contributed through the 4D program, yes, those would be ongoing?
Yes, sir. It's just like when you look at the prosecutor's budget, he has those caseworkers. Each year he submits those hours, and then he gets reimbursed for those salaries. That's the same with the court staff. And we've actually employed Maximus, and the way they get paid on a commission bonus. We don't pay them. They prepare all the paperwork for us. They submit the funding, and then we just take the reimbursement.
Does that fluctuate?
It can if for some reason all of a sudden we had a severe drop in child support enforcement, it could drop. But our experience is going the other way. We have more and more divorce cases. We have more and more children born out of wedlock. Like I said, I don't get to see the good stuff. Those are the things I face, but I anticipate it most likely increasing, but that's just simply an educated guess. But I don't see it dropping by any means.
If I remember right, in the prosecutor's office, how successful they are determines a little bit on how much money they get back from that. I presume that'd be the same in the courts.
It isn't for me because they're an advocate, so they're judged on how much they collect. Mine is strictly based on the number of hours that my staff or Jim's staff spends on those types of issues. So periodically what we'll do is time studies. We did one to start the program. Over a period of time we'll do another one to see where we're at in terms of the amount of time we're spending on the 4D enforcement. So it should be ongoing. From all the literature that I've read through the federal system, this is a popular program. It cuts down on a lot of the other programs. If you can collect that child support, you don't have those children living off of so many social programs. So it's popular on both sides of the aisle. So I don't see it really taking a hit anytime soon.
To remind you guys, council-wise, remember when we did the budget last year and we took one of the women out of Title 4D and are totally funding her out of that new incentive money? It's the same thing, but for the amount, 66 cents on the dollar to the court system that's supporting that. Same way with Debbie Beers and her girl, Lisa Rossiter, is being paid because she could show that she had 30% of her time was being contributed to collecting the child support. So we've now reestablished another fund for the courts since then. A new fund, you'll see it on your fund sheet pretty soon, 8896 will be generated. So when we get all the money reimbursed from the federal dollars, instead of going in 3 pools, county general for people in our office and Debbie and so forth, it'll be broken down into county general, prosecutor's office, court, and Title 4D now. So it'll go into 4 buckets now. And it has largely increased since we started including the courts.
Because she'll be working for 2 different offices, which one of you will supervise her?
Jim will be the primary supervisor, but we've worked together with a plan on when she'll be down in my office. My office will be primarily, when I say my office, the work she'll be doing for me, it's primarily going to be paperwork. Jim uses her sometimes to man his front desk. He uses her to do different things. It'll strictly be paperwork issues for myself. But he'll still be her rater. Certainly I'll have input on that.
What about, so the circuit court side will handle her payroll?
Yes.
And if you incur overtime, if she works so many offices in your office that require overtime, well then you pick up that cost, or?
I haven't anticipated that. I assume that either I will or Jim will. We try to avoid the overtime when we can. That's part of why we want to have her. I mean, I have to kick Deb out of my office every night so that she doesn't. She's a great worker. You know,
Right.
Nothing worse than taking a good worker and saying, you need to go home, you're working too hard. But I have to get her out sometimes because she wants to stay and do some of that paperwork. The answer to your questions, I don't know off the top of my head, but we've been working together on this thing from the start. I'm sure we'll come up with it, either one of us or I will. The thing about it is, from my standpoint, it doesn't impact my budget at all because I don't do as much of the 4D work, so I get a small reimbursement. The lion's share of the 4D comes from circuit court, and that was Jeanette Harold was doing the majority of that work, and we realized, we're paying her out of county general when we can be paying her through these 4D incentives and actually save a lot of funds there.
I'm assuming this is a position that couldn't start in January and be budgeted for in the summer. You'd rather start it now.
Quite frankly, Jim, we decided to just go ahead and go forward now, not because, and I told Kim, I said, the worst thing you can do is after the budget cycle come in and say, hey, I want another person. it presented itself because we had, through the application process, when replacing Linda, I needed a person and a half. So I guess that's a good on Linda, but we'd like to start it as soon as possible. We've needed it.
You just tell me what I would like to hear or what
If I was going to tell you that, I'd tell you I want her back.
I'd let you have her back.
I think I just found a way to get Jim's vote. We got that recorded. But we'd like to start it right now. The need is now. The reporting requirements started in January, and we're phased in. And each day Laura's stacked up. I've been putting Tammy in the courtroom on Monday afternoons to take some of that burden from her, but she's still there. It's taken her from Monday morning until Friday to get her orders out. And sometimes that can be problematic when we have people that are being released from incarceration. I'm basically telling the sheriff, trust me, we'll get the order to you. You can let that person go. If somebody needs to start their incarceration before the end of the week, I'm telling the sheriff, hey sheriff, I've got an order coming. Take my word for it, you can house them. So we try to get those orders out as soon as possible because other folks rely on those. And right now she's backlogged. If we have a short week, those are murder around our office. When we have that Monday off, I hate to say it, my staff will kill me by saying that, but that gives Laura only 4 days. Then she has to start the cycle over on the next Monday. So the long-winded answer to your question is, yeah, we'd like to start it now. But if it's a deal breaker, we'll start it in January. The one thing that we're competing against is the 40's office did have an opening, and Lindsay Grossnickel was recruiting Heather for that position, and I adequately advised her of her punishment if she takes her. But Heather's would prefer to stay in this spot if we can get it funded and set up and approved.
Okay, what questions, other questions, comments? What's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the Heather from part-time to full-time as long as 4D can afford to pay her.
Sure.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved in second. Questions? Not all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same.
All right. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. I know it's a tough climate when somebody asks for somebody new, so I appreciate the support, and we'll make sure that we fund her, so you guys don't have to worry about that.
But in your spare time, keep hunting for more money.
Okay. I have to pat Debbie on the back. She found this.
Okay.
We didn't even know it was there, but we'll keep looking.
All right, thanks. How about the sheriff?